Good afternoon, everyone. Hey, Pastor Moore, how are you?
Well, hey there, I'm doing good in yourselves.
I can hear you real good tonight.
Well, you can, but that's because
Yeah, normally we don't hear you that good.
oh
Let me
wow,
turn this banner off. We're running. I'm running a little late tonight, but hope everybody's doing well. It's cold.
It's
It's
cold.
cold,
oh yes, it's cold,
and let's see.
unusually cold.
Yes, unseasonably cold.
I would go to the store and get me some electrical underwear, but I might get shocked.
Something that look right on my side here. I'm trying to see.
I
He,
don't get
What is it?
electrocuted.
he
He don't
started
get
already.
electrocuted.
I
Electrocuted.
electrocuted. I like to get the scratching and pull the wrong plug and blow up. Boom.
Dad, you're a nut. You are a
I think
nut.
I've got my camera backwards. Let me.
Got your what?
The camera's is mirroring is turned backwards. So
Backwards.
yeah, so I've got to set it so it won't
I
look
don't see
like
nothing
that.
backwards about it.
Yeah, it is. See the words backwards, and we're on
Oh,
the opposite sides.
well, I can see it, but I
Yeah,
don't pay it no attention.
and I got to make sure everything's set up because I was running late, so I didn't like I normally would. And let's see, everything else looks good. Everything else looks all right. All right, better, better. Okay. Yeah, we can hear you pretty good tonight, Preston.
That's good. Doing good. Doing good. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Where are you? Because you're not in your normal space.
I am actually at the hotel where my wife works.
I can't
You
open it.
you know we're expecting a winter storm that our area is not really prepared for. So
Yeah.
of course, they asked her if she would be on call. So they gave us a room and stuff. So we'd be
So
here,
that's where you're
maybe.
spending the night tonight.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Well, I've got a bottle he's trying to open for me.
I'll get
But
it. You go ahead.
let
Use
me
the
see.
muscles. Use the muscles.
You still got any muscles?
Uh-uh.
Yeah. He's still really stopped up, so you guys will probably notice that. So he can hear a little teeny bit, and so I've been having to repeat everything all day long. Well, let's see who's here. Maybe that I hear that. He can't beat on the table.
Beat.
Oh Let me know if you're. I know you heard that. Let me know if you're hearing and seeing us clearly, everybody. And we're just kind of rattled because I got a late start. But Sissy and brother-in-law are here. Pastor Norman, of course, is here. Kathy's here. And Dee Dee is here. Joy hopes George is here. And Vern, hey Vernie. Girl, I gotta work on the taxes. Did you get it? Really? You had to really work on that, didn't you?
Yeah.
And so I've been running around most of the day. Baby girl had a bout of diarrhea. Well, she hadn't had it in months. So I don't know what happened. But anyway, she's okay. She's down here eating a piece of chicken. And Dee Dee said it's snowing over there. She's in Winston. It's snowing. I might be.
Snowing
I
in
took
Greenville.
baby, I just took baby girl out. It's not snowing over here. Jill, hey Jill. Is it snowing in Greensboro? Because if it is, it's missing us all together. Hey, Sister Phyllis and Edward. John Grease is in the house.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you, Jill. Said she can see and hear us good. Thank you.
Is it
So,
snowing over there in Greensboro?
yeah, I asked that question.
What did she say?
She hasn't responded yet.
Oh,
There's some others who are in Greensboro. They can tell you whether it is or High Point. And Jill said it snowed there.
Renee
And
said
it's
it's snowing down
snowing.
there. Renee said it's snowing in her front
Well,
room.
what? How did they miss Kernersville?
Well, see,
Told
that's
her it's snowing in her
I was
front
saying the
room.
same
It's
thing.
not.
That's kind of weird because my daughter lives in Greenville, South Carolina. They were not expected to get snow, and of course, since last week, they was telling us that we're going to get anywhere from 2 to 5 inches. So we've been preparing, but it has not snowed here yet. And all of a sudden, my daughter sent a message to me and a picture, it's snowing hard in Greenville, and they were not supposed to get any snow. So
Huh.
it's snowing harder, and we have not even got a flake yet.
I know, and we're closer to the foothills. We should have gotten some.
Hmm.
There's nothing so far. I just went out with baby girl and there was absolutely nothing. But I'm not missing it because we still got some little piles of snow lingering from the last time. Streets are clear and everything. Yards are fairly clear, but we had a bunch of snow. Well, we got our 47th president as well. So, hey, he says we're entering the golden age.
We will see. Time will tell.
So, anyway, I wanted to mention this before getting started. I was sitting in my bedroom yesterday, and I was watching. I started watching the inauguration, but then I said, no, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see it, so I didn't. But later, I did watch him sign the executive orders, and I watched all of the things he did and whatever. And of course, he did pretty much what I expected him to do. And while I was sitting there, I felt this movement inside myself where I felt, oh, I don't agree with a lot of the things that he's desiring to do. I don't definitely don't agree with his personality, but I heard the Lord say to me, "Do not be afraid.
Exactly.
Do not be afraid." And that uh, he said, "This is the correction needed to bring balance."
Hmm.
It has nothing to do with that president being favored by God. It just means that he's an instrument that will get done what needs to be done to bring the balance. So I accepted that. And I say that to all of those who may be still troubled by the fact that he won the election and all of this. But do not be afraid. Do not
Exactly.
be afraid. I heard that very clearly. So that's my mantra now. Hey, Sister Sharon.
If we could use the words of Paul to Timothy, God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power,
Yeah,
love, and a sound mind.
sound mind.
So
Exactly.
I did find myself actually I wasn't feeling any kind of way. That's the thing. I'm really, it's not having any effect on me, even though I don't agree with the personality, the
Mm-hmm,
character.
mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
I just have this level of confidence. And so I want to use a word that I hear dad use all the time. We just going to observe. That's
Yes,
all we do right now is observe everything,
observing.
because if God is omniscient, nothing catches him by surprise. And so
Exactly.
this all has been ordained and ordered by him, and we should do like what Solomon says: trust in the Lord and lean not to our own understanding.
Well, I know you probably know this already, but he has just given $500 million to AI,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and the guys who are over it are just ecstatic, ecstatic. But the thing,
Yeah.
AI, artificial intelligence, to actually really get that up and running in a lot of areas. Some of it is good, I'm pretty sure. They talked about the fact that medical uh, understanding will elevate. They'll be able to find cures for diseases that they hadn't been able to find before. A lot of different things. They'll be able to catch things a lot quicker. So it'll have benefits, I'm pretty sure. And then there'll be some things that'll probably be disadvantages. But uh, these things must be. And but now that our government it is a democracy somewhat, but not really, because now we've entered into what they call an oligarchy,
All I
which means
got.
the oligarchs are the billionaires. All of the billionaires have come together and they now control the government. So
Entered into the Olive Garden.
the Olive Garden.
Oh, Olive Garden.
He said the Olive Garden.
The Olive Garden.
My wife may ask me to take her there. That's her favorite restaurant.
Olive Garden.
The Olive Garden. Yeah. So the Olive Garden is running the government now.
And it's snowing in Olive Garden.
Yes, it is. It is.
And
So anyway,
let's go on to what we talk
yeah.
about, the 1% running and ruling the world, and that's what we actually entered into. That's why he's making a statement concerning the golden age. And see, a lot of people are cheering on certain things because they have lack of insight and understanding. They have not gone back and studied the history of the things that they are doing. So again, like I said last time, while others are playing checkers, they are playing chess.
The Lord gave me insight, and this is what we're going to talk about tonight. But I did want to mention it. The Lord gave me insight. I've been asking ever since He has come on the scene the first time. What is? I wanted to understand Him, and I have just recently gotten a really clear picture. The Lord has given me some insight, and I realize now that when He says "Make America Great Again," He's simply talking about giving the United States leverage. And so His whole persona, His strategy is leverage. So what He does, what He has in mind whenever He goes into anything, is He wants to make sure He has a one up on the other person or the other uh, organization. So what He does is He leverages Himself so that if anything happens, He comes out on top. So what
Exactly.
He's saying, He wants to leverage the United States so if anything happens, it comes out on top. So I understand that about Him now. So I'm a little bit more settled. Not that it wasn't my choice, my preference, but I understand now what is being done.
Yeah.
So there are going to be a lot of things that are going to be done that I don't agree with, I'm pretty sure, but I understand why now.
Yeah. It's the concept of business. He's a businessman.
It is the business, yes. It's a businessman. So, anywho, now that shift is taking place, we all have to shift with it. And
Well, it's all part of a universal shift.
it is. It is. I
That's
heard.
all that is. That's a symptom or a sign of a universal shift. We ourselves don't have to shift to it. It already happened.
Yeah. So I heard a spiritual teacher say this once. He said that when it is time for a shift to take place, or I won't say when it's time, but when the shift is actually taking place, there are systems in place that must be dismantled in order for other things to be birthed. And so that's what's happening. And I think that also parallels with our own personal lives.
Exactly.
Certain things have to dissolve in order for other things to be born and to come into fruition. So I think that having that understanding, we're always in a shift. It's not like we're not in a shift and then the shift comes. We're always in a shift because that's what living in this earth plane is. Living in this life existence is. It's a constant shifting and adjusting and adapting. And so I guess we have to get more and more comfortable with that. The older a person is, the harder it is to make those shifts
Mm-hmm.
because the set gets set in our way.
Mm-hmm.
And we have gotten set in a lot of our ways, not just personally, but in our country, we've got set. And so that's all being shaken. I remember the scripture that talks about that everything will be shaken that can be shaken.
Several places in the heavens and the earth. Yeah.
Mhm. So only that remains is really of God. Only that remains after the shaking. So
Yeah. You just made well, actually had me be reminded of I did this teaching maybe back in 2007 entitled Shift Making Seasonal Adjustments. And
Mm-hmm.
so you're absolutely right. Anytime that there's a shift that brings the idea that something is about to be replaced. And so what you mentioned about systems. And
Mm-hmm.
so what we
Mm-hmm.
have to do, we have to adapt and adjust. And so
Mm-hmm.
that reminds me of the sons of Issachar who had an ability to discern the times and to tell the people what they ought to do. That means
Mm-hmm.
you need to make a shift. And so, like you said, there's a constant, and it's because we're constantly going through seasons in our lives, just
Yeah.
like we have winter, spring, summer, or fall. That's not it. It returns. It's a consistent cycle.
Mm-hmm.
You have to
Mm-hmm.
keep making
Mm-hmm.
adjustments. But the thing is, we should be very aware of it because in some form, in some manner, we've been there before.
Yes, yes, yes. John said it's interesting to him to see the next step that God has planned, and I am too. I'm kind of just watching how things unfold, and knowing that we're always taken care of anyway. But it just watching how it's going to unfold, and even some things that I may not understand or agree with, how once it unfolds, it may turn out to be one of the best things we ever saw. So I don't know.
Yep.
I'm not that I'm not that political savvy to say, I know how they ought to run things and how they ought to do things. But I think more than anything, I think a lot of us on the left, I'll say it like that, have trouble with the personality more so than we do the policy. Some of the policies, yes, but a lot of it is the personality. And I remember the scripture where it says God is not a respect of persons. So God doesn't look at personalities and decide based on that personality whether they're the one for the job or not. If that were the case, there would be very few pastors in place,
Mhm.
very few ministers in place, because not all of us are fully developed in our ethics and in our personal development. But God chooses that He feels will be able to bring the presence or the message, and so this is where it is. This is where it is. So I'm just like John. I'm interested to see how it's going to unfold. So what did you preach Sunday? I know you told us you preached something about. It's right on the tip of my tongue that you've been talking about.
Getting ready for the big,
Get ready for the big. Yeah,
Get
getting
ready
ready
for the
for
world.
the big.
big.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. What you got on your plate tonight?
getting ready for the big.
That's what you're getting ready
Yeah.
for. Okay.
And you're not. But yeah, basically, I'm still on that, and it's more of a motivational message, dealing with once again setting goals, being aggressive, and things that you had desires to accomplish. Again, just letting everybody know that it's not too late, and so I just feel like even with all that's going on, I think that we're in a position where we can become creative. There's a saying, go big or go at home, which means if you're not going to put your all in all into achieving something that you desire, then don't mess with it. Because if you don't finish, then you're going to frustrate your own self. And so pretty much I've been giving steps on how to do that. Think big, plan big, go big, equates all to big results. And so was blessed as I was sharing this teaching since and my wife and I since New Year's Eve. I had Elder Washington walk in with a surprise on Sunday. He came in with a t-shirt, jeans, and I was like, "Oh man, I should have dressed down," not noticing that right in front of me he had a t-shirt on 2025 big results, Apostle Dr. Norman Armstrong. And so
Oh,
it's funny, right after I did the broadcast on Sunday, that was the thought that came to me. I need to create some t-shirts and I need to go ahead and write a book and do some workshops on it. So it's more of a not so much just a religious or church message. It is actually a
mhm.
message for everyone.
Motivational. Yes.
Anything you set your heart to do, go big. And if you go big, then guess what? Big results will happen in your life. So it's all
Yeah.
left up to you. No more blaming anyone else or any other thing. It's all on you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you made me think about how a lot of times I remember when we were in the brick and mortar and we had ministry school. I remember doing a series of lessons regarding God's will, and I know from experience that a lot of us who have had what we call the born again experience have learned that God will speak. We listen for the voice of God. Those of us who have that understanding and want to live in that dimension, we tend to think about whether or not we're in God's will, and we want God's voice. Uh, we want to hear God speak to us and tell us things. And but the will of God, God's will, there. I always said it like this, and I could be completely wrong, but this is theoretical. There is the objective will of God, and then there is the subjective will of God.
Mm-hmm.
The objective will of God is when God has an object in mind, something specific, and therefore what he says or leads you into or directs does not alter. But then there is the subjective will of God where it is subject to change. Um, an example of that is in the Bible where it talked about, was it Jonah that got swallowed by the whale?
Mm-hmm.
He had been told to go, was it Nineveh? He had been told to go prophesy to the city that God was going to bring judgment to it. And yet the people got together and prayed, and God changed his mind.
Mm-hmm.
So here we have two different modes that God gives us direction. Sometimes God gives us direction and it's subject to change.
Mm-hmm.
There are other factors, other things you factor in that could possibly change it. So I know for myself, a lot of us are living on past communications from God, thinking that they were permanent. But because God issued forth a direction or a directive for something at one time, does not mean that thing is forever and always.
Mm-hmm. I like that you brought up the fact of Jonah. And what's so funny about the story, we know that Jonah really tried not to fulfill what
Mm-hmm.
the Lord was commissioning him to do. Of course, he was trying to escape the assignment
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
Nineveh had a reputation of being very wicked and
Yeah.
so forth and violent. And so when he eventually, of course, we know when he was swallowed up by the big fish, they got that word big again. Um, he was then put out on the shore of Nineveh, and he
Mm-hmm.
went and he gave the prophecy to the king and to the city of Nineveh what the Lord told him to do. But the funny part about the whole thing was this: he went and sat up under the juniper tree, and he
Mm-hmm.
was waiting for God to destroy Nineveh.
Mm-hmm.
Only for, like you said, they prayed and they turned to God, they repented, and God saved Nineveh. So now
Mm-hmm.
the prophet Jonah is upset because God
Yeah.
knew
Yeah. He
what,
got upset with
what
God.
he said to do. And see, and that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand. Just like you talk about the objective will and the subjective will, and then we talk about
Mm-hmm.
the perfect will or the permissive will of God,
Mm-hmm.
meaning God allows certain things to happen. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of times we don't know the real reasoning why we're being
Exactly.
prompt to do something. God is trying to bring about a change. And I mean, just
Yeah.
like you mentioned about earlier, I mean, it's not the topic, but I want everybody to understand this is a whole universal thing where we may not clearly understand why that certain individual is in place, but
Yes.
God is bringing about a change that will be beneficial. It
Yes.
will
Yes.
happen. And so
That's
we
right.
may not be in agreement, but just like Jonah, he went and he said what the Lord said, and he waited for the destruction of Nineveh, only for them to repent. You see what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
now he upset. The messenger's upset when he should have been happy that God saved Nineveh alive.
Yes, yes. And so, and I said that to say this, that sometimes our lives are altered, our lifestyles are altered, uh, the direction we thought we were going to go in is altered, and then we wonder what happened. And
Mhm.
it could have been, I'm not saying it was, but it could have been simply that it was a part of the subjective will of God,
Mhm.
which means it was subject to change.
Mhm. And when you said that word altered, I immediately thought about my mom, because she's, she's a seamstress as well. She's been in fashion school and all of that, and that was
Mhm.
actually the first thing that she was into before she started the baking. But all of the suits that I buy, because of my height and again me having broad shoulders and lifting the waist and stuff like that, I have to, the suits I buy. I can't find a suit that fits me. I can't
Mhm.
find one. So she has to do my alterations, which means she has to alter the suit so that it will fit. Well, just like you're saying, there are things that are happening. There are alterations that's being made so that everything could
Mhm.
fit for this season and this time.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I'm smiling because I was watching some reruns of Steve Harvey on Family Feud, and he had a family on there. I can't remember their names, but the gentleman on one family was an ex jockey. In other words, he rode racehorses for how many years? I can't remember. So many years, 40 years, I think he said. And he was a little bitty guy. I mean, tiny, just tiny, because those men are very little, very, very, very little. They don't, because they don't put a lot of weight on those horses, those race horses. But he was standing next to Steve Harvey, and Steve Harvey started laughing because he said, "Man, I like that suit." That's what Steve said to the guy. He said, "I like that suit." He said, "That looks like a familiar suit." And then so Steve started laughing because he said, "I have a children's line." And so the guy was so small, he was wearing the children's line. So it was like a mini me. It was Steve
A
and a
mini
mini me.
me.
It was so funny. It was so funny. I mean, and he was decked out too, but it was the children's brand. I thought, man, that was funny. But he looked his suit looked exactly like Steve Harvey's, and
Wow.
only he was smaller.
That's right. I didn't know that Steve Harvey did a children's line. I didn't even
I
know that.
didn't either.
Mm-mm.
But you're right. It has to fit. Life has to fit. Um, in fact, you can kind of tell when you're out of alignment because things just don't feel right. They don't fit.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I agree with you. That's a good way to put it. Pastor, what you got on your plate tonight? You're not able.
Oh,
We're just talking, running our mouths.
just listen. I don't know what they can hear. I can't hear.
I can hear you. They can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah. If you get too low, I'll move it closer.
Jesus demonstrated to the people that his word was with power and not a word that hollered and screamed.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Excuse me.
That's true.
And his word was with power and authority that unclean spirits cried
Mm-hmm.
out with loud voices,
Mm-hmm.
saying, "Let us alone. What have we to do with it?" That was Jesus of Nazareth. It's amazing how these things inside of people can recognize what's inside of us better than we can recognize what's inside of ourselves.
I see it. I
Exactly.
see it. Yes.
And
Yes.
I
Yes.
remember the little boy when I first went to the Toys for Tot. They was sitting around in a circle, and they started asking me questions about Christmas and things like that. And one little boy uh, said something to me, and I said, your daddy bought you a bicycle last Christmas," and I said, "You've been waiting for him to put the air in the tire so you can ride it." And I said, he hadn't done it yet. And he looked up at me like they looked at Jesus, and they said, and he said, how do you know that? I said, that's my job.
Mhm.
I think Pastor Norman, you were with us when we went to that church, and then when he was with those little
Yes,
kids.
I now know what you're
Yeah,
talking about. Me and Earl was with y'all.
yeah, you were.
I
That's right.
remember that.
And
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
that's happened a lot of times in the stores. And uh, little boys, little girls sit on my lap, and I talk to them about their toys and what they got. And I think one lady came up. What was the little boy name? Was Prince
It was Sir.
Sir.
Mm-hmm.
Little boy name was Sir.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that?
No, this was another
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 case.
incident. Yeah.
But I
I
remember that.
never did know that it was supposed, when you wake up, these potentials are supposed to operate through us. But I haven't seen many of them online that operate in it because they was too busy focusing on waking up conversation. And I know that on a spontaneous basis,
Now you're talking about the spiritual teachers,
It-
not ministers, right?
spiritual teachers and ministers,
Mm-hmm.
and Jesus did not classify himself as a prophet or anything to do these things. And they said these things, said, I know that who thou art, the Holy One of God. Why should they know that we are, that inside of us and we inside of him, that we are one with him more than we do ourselves?
Mhm.
And that's not too cool for us to teach everything else in the Bible, but that part. Now you go spirituality. I remember one time I was walking down the aisle and at Bishop Patterson's, and they were thinking that maybe I was looking at something and picking up information. So I just decided I'd turn my back to them. And when I did, I could see behind me without turning my head. And I could still tell them what they've been doing before they got there. And this is spontaneous. This is automatic. I remember also a man that we were going to buy a trailer from, a mobile home from.
It was our first house.
And he lived up in Pilot Mountain. And I went to him to talk to him about
We did a layaway to get that
layaway to get the
to
trailer.
get that trailer
And we went to him, and he said he's going to have to do something with it
because it
because
was
he
taking
couldn't
us too long.
take this too long.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. I just looked and I saw Jesus with him up in the mountain. And I began to tell him about some problems he was having with his stomach and what was going on in his life. And he sat there paralyzed. I said, and you are paralyzed in this chair until you tell me what I need to hear.
He's probably scared to move.
He's scared. I mean, he's really paralyzed. And he said, well, here's what we'll do. We'll let you keep it on the lot and you
What
can
about
continue to make payments on it. Now, that has been something that I had worked at for years because I knew if the book was true and Jesus did this, why would he be any difference in us than he was when we were in him back during that time? Everything that Jesus said with us in him 2024, 25 years ago, we were inside of him listening to his conversation as he is inside of us and we're listening to his conversation.
Mhm.
Once you understand the full implementation of the function of the eternal self, you will be able to see what's going on in their feelings, their thoughts. You'll be able to look at the way they walk and tell where they been and how they got there. That's the reason why when I see people in the doctor's office, if they're in a wheelchair, I always stop and talk to them because I know that he's in them and he's looking at them through me. And I use it to talk to him and I say, I don't never know what I'm going to say. And I say, you'll be fine. I said, you'll be out of this and that. And I found out how to not let what's physically wrong with me stop me from hitting that switch on the inside
And having compassion on other
and
people.
have compassion. Because
Mhm.
even though you may have something infirmity wrong with you, your compassion will cause you to rise up above it
Mhm.
for them
Mhm.
to
And
see
a lot
him.
of times you benefit from doing that because it's at that point that your mind being taken off of yourself, you do get relief from your own problems.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so I found out I don't do it as much as I used to because I don't have a reason for it uh, in the brick and mortar. But I pass people all the time in the restaurant. I saw one lady at the substation, and I started out the door. Her husband was up waiting to be waited on. He had a hearing aid, and I looked at him. And as I started out the door, I stopped and looked at her. I said, "How long has your husband been wearing a hearing aid?" She didn't tell me he was her husband. And she said, "Oh, he been wearing it." I said, "I understand." And I said something about a name that I misunderstood. And she said, "How do you know him?" I said, "Who?" She said, "You just called my son's name." Oh, I did. And she told her husband when he came back that I knew her son. And I began to talk to her about Jesus looking out of her eyes at me.
Mhm.
And that's the way I strike up conversation with people all over the place and everywhere I go. Sometimes I don't want to do it. Sometimes I don't do it. Sometimes I'll do it just in conversation. But here's the flow of the water. Once this spring is flowing through you, it never stops. You just observe it flowing. And when it's flowing, the best thing to do, if you want it to flow, if it's not flowing, is say to somebody, "Hello, I'm glad you came tonight." And while you're doing that, you're listening.
Well, you have a unique way of doing those things, but it boils down to and I've kind of come out of my shell because I was never the kind of person never met a stranger. You always been that way. You
Well, you're a
never
stranger.
you
I've never
never met a
met you.
stranger, but you kind of your demeanor brought me out more than I used to be. I'm
Oh,
more
I got
open.
a demeanor.
Yes, you have.
You got one.
Yeah,
Yeah, you got
yeah.
one too.
But it's about
I call it
it's
demeanness.
about lifting people up and
Exactly.
lifting them. So a lot of times you'll run into somebody. Sometimes you run into somebody who doesn't want to be lifted up.
No, they don't.
They get actually upset because you're happy. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. But really, it's about having compassion enough to try to lift people's spirits on a day-to-day basis, and that's what we
There
need
was
to
a
do.
man driving a tractor trailer. I was on the way to church, and he had pulled off from this gas station, and he didn't go around and pull the nozzle out of
It
his
was
gas
stuck in
tank, and
there.
he was riding down the highway
With it
dragging
stuck in there,
the
yeah.
nozzle.
Mhm.
Wow.
And I looked over there at him, and by me having that train horn, I could make a lot of noise, and I stopped him. I did like this, and he looked like he might have been from Jamaica, but he didn't pay no attention. He pulled off and tore the thing loose.
He was
He
preoccupied,
was,
obviously.
and
Yeah.
pulled him over and stopped. I said, and he looked
Mm.
and he said, "Thank you." Now, I saw Jesus. I
Mhm.
saw him. I saw him stop himself driving a truck
Mm.
Mhm.
and saved his life.
Helped himself, yes.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
knew then that point that God wasn't through with him. If he didn't do anything but go to the next stop and pull the hose out, take it back, he may have. But the thing of it is, I'm looking at all these incidents. They were amazed at the way he spoke to them with authority. and these things appeared in people. There was a girl coming down the aisle, and we had a long line of people. And I wasn't interested in laying hands. I was just greeting people coming down the aisle. And I said, good to see you. Hello. And another girl said, all of a sudden I said, I hadn't seen her before. I said, who are you? That thing said, I am envy. I said, really?
You weren't expecting that. Same
Wow.
kind of manifestation Jesus had when the man in the temple came out and said, leave us alone.
And she said, I am
You come
envy.
to
I
torment
said,
us
oh,
before
yeah.
our time.
I could let her
Yes.
go on. I wasn't going to hold up everybody else fooling with that thing. And
Wow.
it happens like that. Once you get familiar with the breath and the way it works on a spontaneous I am basis, that's the reason why I say it's very important that you understand the fullness. Like I go in the closet, I said, I see you.
Mhm.
I know you.
Mm-hmm.
You can't hide from me. I know where you are. I know your street address. I know what kind of clothes you wear.
Mhm.
I said, I done draw the bead on you. And I said, I am you, and you are me, and we are each other's oneness. I can tell he's listening and
Yeah.
inside.
Yeah.
To me, that's one of the greatest experience of revelatory insight of the knowing.
Look.
What is this thing doing? Did you give her something to eat?
You see, baby girl.
She looking.
She be right. She's right.
She, she,
She
she
listened
wants
to
to be
me
part of the
talking.
broadcast. She done stick her head between us.
She didn't give you anything to eat.
I did. She ate it already.
She wants to talk. She hears talking.
Baby girl.
And so once you understand this, God will always give you a hook. And sometimes it's my hat, sometimes it's the beard, sometimes it's the shirt, and sometimes it's somebody that I would say, good morning, good afternoon. And I'll stop and I said, I see the Lord in your eyes looking at me.
Keep
They don't
talking.
expect that.
I've got to
Mm-mm.
take her out.
They don't expect that because they're not thinking that the Christ is standing right there in living color, live and in living color. And most of them minds are so infested with the side effects of the sickness of separation and individuality that they wouldn't, their minds had blocked them with so much distractions in the stores. Like one lady stopped and she was looking for some canned goods on the shelf. I just turned and looked at her. She was going. She didn't realize I was looking at her. She just looked. That was an opportunity for me to say something to her, but I waited,
Mm-hmm.
and she turned and went the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I pass by the office of the managers of the stores, and I wave at them, and I say, "How you doing?" In that, she said, "I'm doing good." And then sometimes I'll be out in the store having meetings, and I'll stop them. You'd be surprised as to the way of God and such a earthly, down to earth, in the store, 24/7 conversation with people. I get more opportunity to talk to people now that I'm not in a brick and mortar than I did when I was in it. But if I get a chance, if when I come to see you, whenever I get a chance to, I'll just step down and just meet people, and whatever is done, like I did your grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
I met her like that, and I just happened to be talking, and I want to talk to somebody out there, so I just walked up to her, And I said, get up. She didn't get up. So all of a sudden inside, he said, my son, concerning the work of my hand, command ye me. I
Mhm.
said, I speak to the Christ in you and commanded you get up. Sure, you saw when she popped
Oh yeah.
up.
Hmm.
Now, somebody would say, why don't you do everybody like that? That's not his, I'm sorry to say it like this, but it's not his interest. If it's not his, it's not mine.
Hmm.
If I did do that 24/7 in the stores, the people would, that's two things would happen. They would think I'm crazy. They would think I'm psychic and I'm reading people and all that stuff. I don't care what they think. I just don't take time out to do it.
Hmm.
Uh, if I look at somebody and I say, you look like somebody I've seen before, and they say, no. And I say, oh, yeah, I know where I saw you. I saw you in heaven before we came to earth.
Hmm.
And I said, we talked and had this conversation before on the other side. They look at you right funny. We did. And then some Christian folks will say, yeah, we were in heaven together. But you see, some people seem to think that we didn't come from heaven to get here. We came from inside of the mother giving birth to our bodies. But you got to go a step further than that. And once you see what I'm talking about, you'll be able to look at people's eyes and can tell that last night in their sleep, they cried all night.
Hmm.
You can read the tears in their eyes, and you'll be able to, sometimes you'll smell what they've been through. And your environment, I tell you like this, with all of you, the way you were raised and the condition that you were raised in train you for this moment and this hour as to how to operate in the I am, you are, we are him, eternal self, Christ identity. All you have to be and do, if you stayed around people that did this all the time, it would rub off on you.
Hmm.
And if it rub off on you, but you got to be, you can't be ashamed, you can't be scared, because some people say, I beg your pardon. I say, well, I'll see you next time. And I just go on. And I tell some girls in the stores, I said, well, hello there, Miss Hollywood. You know, like
Hmm.
I tell them, but I find a reason for the Christ identity to tell them something about them that reminded me that we met before in a lifetime before coming to earth.
Hmm.
Now, here's a rough one. One girl come down the aisle, and the line was lined up all the way outside the door. I wasn't expecting it. I was in a broken-hearted state. And I looked at her, and the whole picture of where she came from before coming to church. The lady's name was, it's a strange name. Her name was Abaturkey. What a name, Abaturkey.
Albuquerque.
Abaturkey. I said, you just come out of the back seat of a man's car into this church. And everybody eyes popped. I said, I saw you and what you were doing in the back seat of the car before coming in this church. That shocked a lot of people. Now, when you start doing this in churches, if you've been mentored by a prophet or a pastor, and if he is not open to this, at the end of the service, he'll think you're trying to take over.
Hmm.
Or if you're young like I was, I'm doing this with people that I haven't been in the ministry with but about 4 or 5 weeks. And I start doing this. And the pastor would tell me at the end, "You're not ready for this. You're not ready for this." I looked at him and I said, "Okay," but I couldn't understand, what does it take to be ready if you're already doing that?
Mm-hmm.
But he put the brakes on me a lot, and I couldn't stay around him because I saw him doing things that I knew that was causing the people to stay away from it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was mean, he was rough. He'd walk the chairs and talk to people and pull out all kind of things that was for him. So I'm saying all this to say that there are a lot of things inside of us that all we need to do is be around where you are freely given the functions of these operations. If Jesus did it, why don't I hear more about this in the course? Why don't I hear more about this in some of the churches I go to? Why don't I hear more about this in the classes of the Sunday school? Why don't I hear more about this in the places that we go for services? All they want to do is read the scriptures and quote them and holler and scream and jump up and down. But there's some people. I walked up to one lady and her family sitting in the aisle, and I just stopped and I said, "Get your black suit ready." I said, "Your cousin is getting ready to cross over." They looked at each other like I was crazy. No, no, I ain't crazy. There's a knowing that comes out through the unction or the function of the Spirit,
Mm-hmm.
and they come back the next time, and that person I was talking to, they crossed over. Now, I'm not saying that to say I'm speaking bad things. I'm just telling them what I see and what I know.
Exactly.
Uh, we used to have classes in the church. I used to line them up, and you remember this.
I remember. I was part of them.
I, I miss that part. I miss that part. I really do miss that more than anything. The loneliness that comes over me, sometimes I have to wrestle with it because I feel like I've lost something. And at my age of 77, 78, I just wondered, how am I going to work with this? Because I've been in it for 50 years at least. And that was the normal nature of the Christ in me to do things like that. Legs growing out and eyes opening and things like that. I've seen God open some eyes, blind eyes, and because the person didn't believe it was real, the eyes went back shut again.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen things like this. When I was a little boy, there was a dog that I had, and the dog couldn't walk. And I don't know where the idea came from it. But I went and got some rags and I tore them up. And I took 2 sticks and I put it around the, oh, that mercy. Put 2 sticks around his back leg and wrapped it up. And in less than 3 days, I went back and took. Now this, I wasn't even in church. I was a little boy,
Mm-hmm.
and I unwrapped his leg, and the dog went walking. I remember going out in the shed because my dog wouldn't. They couldn't let him in the house. I laid down with the dog in the shed and slept with him in the cold to keep him warm. That's just my nature. That's just the way it was.
Yeah.
But once you understand the life that this Christ self is no different than anything that you could ever imagine in the book, ink and paper. So you learn how to function with your Christ self without any knowledge of book, reading, paper, ink, studying. And I started out in this thing, all I wanted to see was Jesus the way he was, that I understood the way he was.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the reason why I did everything that he did in the book, going out in the woods, walking so far in the woods, what I sensed inside of me to stop and kneel down on a log and talk to it. I didn't know I was talking to myself.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to him. I thought I was talking to him out here, but I was talking to him inside. So my thing is this. I love to tell him that I see him. I love to play a hide and seek game with him. I love to play game
No,
with him.
that's funny.
I say, I see you. You
I,
can't hide.
I said that's
I
funny
know where you are.
because my granddaughter, that's the first
Ah,
my granddaughter Saturday, she wanted to play that with me. That was the first time I played hide and go seek with her. She actually said, I need you to I need you to go. So I was like, Shannon, what is she talking about? She wanted to play hide and go
yeah.
seek. So when you said that, that made me think about her. So it was fun.
Oh, it's amazing.
I think that's God's favorite game.
And
Yeah.
he hide from himself in order to find himself in the same place
Mhm.
that he's always been. What's so amazing is that I found out we have never ever been without him.
It's true.
Even before the formation in the womb, before birth, physical birth.
Well, your Meister Eckhart, the mystic, Christian mystic, said he's hidden in plain sight. He's veiled by his own appearing.
I had to go in the
So,
closet.
so when we appear, he's veiled by that.
That's right.
That's him appearing, but we don't recognize him because he's ourselves.
For 100 times, I go in there and I say, I miscount, but I make up for it with an extra. I'll say, I know where you are. I am in you. You are in me. And we are in each other.
Mhm.
One.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I am in you. You in me. I see you. I know where you are. 2. 5 times. And then the next time, another 5, 10, 10, 20, 30, 40, 56 rounds. And then I'll go into that next round and I say, you are the eternal love inside of me,
Mhm.
and I am the wisdom of God inside of you. And here's what I tell him: I am your salvation, and you are mine.
Mm-hmm.
I tell him the most drastic thing that he's ever told me about himself being in me. I find the most drastic thing I can tell him with me being inside of him. I blow God's mind out of my head. Oh Lord, have mercy.
That's God.
If you really want to get his attention, you don't have to do anything. But if you want to develop communication skills, tell yourself him that the middle ground between you and him has been removed.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing between you and I now. You are open and clear unto me, and I can see you with no hesitation. Do it
Mm-hmm.
100 times in your secret place.
Yeah. No
You
gaps.
know, I'd say, Lord, I come to you most on the way. I know how. I want you to help this. I want you to do that. I don't have time for that because that is automatically covered under the God inside of us, I am him, he is me contract.
I think a lot of times when we pray, when get involved with really specifically praying, we try to impress God.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
am
And
Christian.
God, you don't need to impress God.
Lady come into my room in the hospital. You got a son. He's having some problems talking sassy back to you. Oh, I know she done went out and got 2 or 3 other nurses and brought them back in the room. Or you see an angel in the room. You're looking up there. You see an angel, Pastor.
He must be
Mhm.
looking at his watch.
You see an angel in there.
Gwen's probably there.
No, that's
Hey,
Aaron. You hearing? Yeah.
there was a man that got stuck up under a tractor trailer. The jack fell, and when it fell, it pinned him down from that bar go across the front axle. It crushed him in half, his spine and everything.
You talked about that Sunday.
I did.
Yeah.
And this man left his body and was standing outside of his body looking down at himself. And this little girl come in and kept slapping him in the face to wake him up. She said, "Don't leave us now." And he come back 2 or 3 times. They finally got him out. And when they got him out, there wasn't nobody that they knew as a doctor during that time that could fix him back. But there was a man that was at a distant place that the Lord spoke to catch a plane and go to where this man was that he heard about that was pinned under this truck. He went to the hospital room, Pastor. And when he got there, the Lord told him to speak to every part of that part of his body that was crushed. He commanded all those stomach functions to come back. The man that was in the hospital said he felt like heat was burning up in the inside of him. To this day, he pulled his shirt up and showed the big scar of all the many surgeries that he had that they couldn't do nothing about. God restored him.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I'm talking about. I'm not telling you that everybody is going to do this, but you can. You can get it started.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to let you guys get away from this conversation just by listening to me talk about it. It's time for you to do something with this Christ that's in you because he's waiting for you as a team, not as an individual, but as a team to start expecting to hear him whisper. Sometimes he'll whisper, sometimes it'll be a knowing, sometimes it'll be a seeing, sometimes it'll be a feeling, sometimes it'll be an empathicness, sometimes it'll be a walk, sometimes it'll be a step, sometimes you hear something, sometimes you'll see an angel, sometimes you'll know it. But at any rate, it's there waiting for your attention.
Exactly.
Is that good enough?
That's the whole
And that's
concept
gonna
of
cost
my
y'all $100 bill
revelation
right there.
of the big. Yep.
What you say, Pastor?
I said that's actually the whole concept of the revelatory teaching that I've been doing on the topic, get ready for the big. Because I'm not talking about the size of a thing. My focus is really dealing with the major concerns or the different aspect of things that you desire. So it's not so much the size or the depth or the height or the amount of something. I'm talking about something that's been deep upon you, a major concern that you have. It's about to be taken care of, and answers are going to come. Yeah. Ready for the big. Yeah.
Wow. Well, we've been on here an hour, and I'm sorry I was out part of the time. Baby
Has
girl.
it been an hour?
It's been an hour. And,
Don't even seem like it, do it.
I know. The baby girl had to make a run. So
when you're out in the snow, stop and listen to the snow talking, voice of God. When you turn your faucet on in the kitchen, listen to the water prophesy, speak to you.
The wind blows.
And the wind blows.
Yes.
Water talks.
I see
you
must have been with me today.
What you
Huh?
say?
I said he must have been with me today.
You must
The
have been
stuff
with him.
that you
Oh,
are describing, like what you just talked about, the water, the faucet, is funny
Mm-hmm.
because when I left home, I um I was getting ready to leave and I went back and I said, well, I'm gonna be gone. So I know the temperature is gonna drop. So I went back to, make sure that the faucets and stuff were dripping and stuff
Mm-hmm.
so that the pipes won't freeze up. And I found myself listening out of nowhere, just listening
Yeah.
to the drops. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
just stopped, and I was like, "Why am I listening to that?" And so when Dad started saying, "I was like, that's why I said you must have been with me today because I actually was doing that."
Who's that? Who is it? Kenneth Hagan. Years ago, we used to listen to his tapes before, way back when. And he said he was going through a financial crisis, and he's driving his car, and his car had what Dad calls maypops on them. See, they so thin, you had to rubber with turpentine or alcohol to keep the mosquitoes from biting. He said he was riding along, and he started riding along. He was praying, and he said all of a sudden he could hear them tires saying, "What you gonna do now? What
what
you
you gonna
gonna
do?
do now? What you gonna do now? What you gonna do now?" And he said he yelled out, "I'll tell you what I'm gonna do." That was his faith confessions came alive right then. But yeah,
Old
so
Paul Kane was riding low in the car, going through the city, running every stoplight in town. Police run up behind and say, "Sir, do you realize you just run every stoplight in the city?" Paul Kane said, "Officer, I'm so sorry, but I was talking to my angel through my rearview mirror in the back seat. So I didn't realize I was running all them lights." The policeman said, "If you don't pay attention to what you're doing, you're going to kill yourself and your angel."
I'm gonna read this last scripture and then we're gonna take off, folks. You heard this scripture before, and I'm reading it because Pastor Dad right here, his thing is to go into the closet, and so this is what the scripture talks about in uh, Matthew 6:6, and it says in the fifth verse, when you pray, he said, and when you pray, thou shalt not be as the hypocrites are, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues
Mhm.
and in the corners of the streets, that they may be seen of
Mhm.
men. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. But in the sixth verse, he says, but you, when
Mhm.
you pray, he
Mhm.
said, enter into your closet. And when you have shut the door, pray to your Father which is in secret,
That's it.
and your Father which sees you in secret shall reward you openly. But when you pray, use not vain repetitions. Don't keep repeating what you've heard other people say. Lord God, Father God, Lord God. Uh, Come, like you said, most humble way I know how. Those are
Empty
vain repetitions. He said, for they think that they shall be heard for their much speaking.
thinking. Yep.
God hears you when there's no words.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's not the words that gets God's attention.
Yeah, that's right.
It's showing up that gets God's attention.
A
That's
guy said one time, Pastor. The guy said one time, Pastor said, "If I ever find out in the Bible that God ever cussed in the Bible, said I'll put it down when they'll pick it up again."
Oh, wow.
So he looked in
I
the
don't think
Bible and he
God
saw
cussed
what
in there, but if somebody else did.
hey, he said Jesus rode in the town on a coat and an ass, and he said, "That's it. I ain't gonna read the Bible no more." The first time I heard God cuss is either to get your what's out of the ditch,
Your ass out of the
get your
ditch.
ass out of the ditch. And then on something about the Sabbath day, he said, "I'll never read the Bible no more."
I think that was a good excuse, wasn't it?
Yeah,
That was a
There
good
was an
excuse.
yeah.
excuse because he know good and well there wasn't no cuss.
Listen, guys, we're going to take off here. We still don't have any snow. I don't know. It just bypassed us altogether.
Maybe we get in the morning. If it don't,
No, it said it's going to stop and it probably in some places already stopped.
Stopped. It ain't never
Because
started.
it's moving. It's moving east and going north and all of that stuff. Pastor Norman probably got more of it than we would.
Well, I don't know yet. I'm gonna check once I get off to see if we.
Yeah, because
we
it
got
was moving east, I think, and northeast.
Yeah,
And
you
so
have
it
places
kind of
like
bypassed Kernersville.
places
remember
like
when I
New Orleans that had snow, which is
Yeah.
very rare.
Louisiana.
Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
A
rare.
lot of those places.
it was snowing so
down in the
bad.
Gulf.
I got out of the factory at 12 o'clock at night. It'd be snowing, and the old folks say snowing to beat the band. And it'd be snowing, and them boys come out of the factory with T-shirts on. And when they come back in after lunch, they say, "Man, is it bad out there?" He said, "The road is done got so slick, the yellow line done slid over to the side ditch."
Y'all heard it. You heard it here.
Lord Jesus.
We're going to take off here. Pastor Norm, once again, thank you so much. I didn't talk to you whether or not you're going to be on tonight, but I'm glad you did come in to be with us tonight. You didn't get to say much, but it's good having you with us.
Thank you.
Every time you come.
Yes.
For all the cash apps.
Yeah, and Jill's posted how to give to Pastor Norman. You guys can see at the top of the screen how to give to us, and we just thank you so much. I think it was Leslie that gave $200 on the StreamYard. What I want to say tuition, but the StreamYard subscription. She did that on Sunday.
I want to thank you for the nuts and fruits and candy.
Mm-hmm.
I want to thank you for the chocolate milkshakes. I want to thank you for the scrambled eggs and onions. I want to thank you for everything.
He must be hungry.
No, I ain't
sounds like
hungry.
he's hungry, but he's not hungry.
No, I haven't been eating much.
No.
See, I look at my pale my face done got. I gotta get some more blood. Can I borrow some of y'all blood out there? But in the meantime, back at the ranch.
He's still recovering from that surgery. Some he's doing a little better, but he's doing a lot better. But he still has some days when he feels bad. But
I stayed in bed 2 days this week.
You did, but I think you have a cold. I think you had a little cold.
I could hear what she said.
He does that deliberately too.
My ears stopped up.
He don't want to hear what I'm saying.
Dad, you enough.
No, I'll tell you what he does. He think he's slick, but I
if you want to.
Stop that. So we were riding along in the car and we had the radio on, and I'm saying something he doesn't want to hear. He'll turn the radio on.
I can't hear what she said.
That ain't right. That ain't right. That ain't right.
Now you see how perfect our marriage is. It's perfect. But
she won't give me no sugar. I gotta have some sugar.
Well, listen, we're going there for real.